Hey y'all, Scott here, and welcome all new citizens of the Chewy Dog Nation! Woo! Alright, let's get started. You all know why you're here. Dio was born in England during the year 1867. 6-7. We know basically nothing about his mother other than that she likes being dead, but his father was a man that we do know. Dio Brando, who was this filthy, degenerate, scheming, bald, angry, worthless drunkard. So if it wasn't bad enough that Dio was born before Prime Titanfall 2, if it wasn't bad enough that the bloke was born British, he just had to get stuck with this bottom-of-the-barrel, grey loot tier father. No wonder he turned out to be an evil vampire supervillain. His dad's name rhymes with Wario. Demographically speaking, during this era, circumcision was fairly uncommon amongst the Christian Anglo populace, especially if you were some broke nobody. Most of the circumcisions practiced in England at the time were done in the few Jewish communities. Now, is Dio Jewish? Frankly, none of that even matters, because in the third episode of the show, Dio becomes a vampire, and once Dio becomes a vampire, he gains the ability to regenerate. But then that doesn't matter, because at the end of Phantom Blood, Dio, as a sad, little, pathetic, stupid head, kills Jonathan and grafts his head onto Jonathan's body. Meaning from there on out, whether or not Dio is circumcised no longer depends on whether Dario is Jewish or could even afford a doctor or whatever, but it depends on whether or not Jonathan is circumcised. So let me check my source real quick.
Alright, is Jonathan Joseph. Ooh, who made this?
Jonathan Joestar was born into a wealthy Victorian-era English family. Now, if that isn't a recipe for circumcision,
why do I sound like
I
that?
don't know what is.
Do I still sound like that? I sound like I'm about to cry.
You think Dario is willing to shill out some extra coin to circumcise his baby?
That's what I said!
Jonathan Joestar, circumcised.
Alright, well, this complicates things a little bit. I make a video about Jojo's circumcision, and then like half the comments are just about how I struggle to place doors in Minecraft. What do I put in the description? Who the fuck are you?! Okay, I think I'm getting distracted.
It's unclear whether or not regeneration is a voluntary process for vampires, or it's just something that happens to them. If regeneration is something Dio actively had to choose to do, then whether or not Dio is circumcised really depends on whether he chooses to regrow his foreskin or not. That's right, he gets to pick whether or not he's circumcised or not, which is pretty uncommon. So let's say Dio's regeneration is voluntary, it is something he has to choose to do. What would Dio choose? Dio is a very spiritually interested person. From what we know about him during parts 1, 3, and 6, well, mainly 6 to be fair, Dio is very fascinated by the ideas of religion, faith, and fatalism. Circumcision, from its very inception, is deeply tied to religion. Although nowadays it's not super uncommon for people to get circumcised for other reasons, the practice did begin thousands of years ago as a religious ritual. So whether or not Dio is circumcised, I just know his ass sat down at least once and pondered about it. Maybe he even had a little chat about it with the boy he groomed. What's interesting to me about Dio's regeneration is that Dio always kept his neck scar from grafting his head onto Jonathan. Theoretically, a little scar should not be that hard to heal. And if his regeneration was involuntary, why wouldn't this one scar heal? The way I see it, this scar is good proof that Dio's regeneration is at least somewhat voluntary. Because Dio is totally the kind of guy to want to keep a scar like that as a reminder of his total supremacy over Jonathan. I mean, what is more dominating than stealing a guy's entire body and making it your own? Therefore, Dio's foreskin likely wouldn't regrow back on its own. And if Dio is willing to keep a massive scar on his body as a remnant of Jonathan, I don't think he'd want any alterations to Jonathan's body, because the more he changes it, the less of it is still Jonathan's body. And the less of Jonathan's body there still is left, the lesser his victory over Jonathan becomes. Therefore, Dio Brando is circumcised. Now, Cars. My favorite movie Cars 2. Like Dio, Cars is not a human, but he's not a vampire either. He's a pillar man. Cars is the perfect being, the perfect living organism. That's his whole shtick. Everything Cars is and can do is perfect. Would the perfect being be circumcised? Would the perfect being even have a penis? I don't know. The Pillarmen lived on Earth thousands of years ago as like humans, but like better. They were pretty cool. They had a pretty strong warrior culture and are very clearly heavily inspired by the Aztecs. But then Cars here killed their entire species except for 3 other Pillarmen he let live. Couldn't have at least spared like 1 or 2 pillar huzz? You guys are gonna go extinct. Since Cars and the other Pillarmen are so Aztec coded, I think it's safe to base our assumptions about their cultural practices around the actual Aztecs. The Aztecs did not practice circumcision, like, at all. In fact, I don't even think they knew what circumcision was. Maybe because of the big as fuck ocean separating the old and new world, but I mean, who really knows, you know? None of that really matters because this guy Cars was born in 100,000 BC. Guys, circumcision was not invented yet. How the fuck would Cars be circumcised? Now my goat, my king, my everything. Yoshikage Kira, main villain of Diamond is Unbreakable. Kira was born in Morio, Japan in the year 1966. Holy old. Kira claims to be the descendant of noble samurai. Yeah, alright, sure, pal, I'm distantly related to Chairman Mao. As far as his family life goes, his dad is this super protective, almost infantilizing helicopter parent, which likely played a role into why Kira turned out the way he did, which is freaking awesome. His mom was, I don't even know. We know basically nothing about her other than the fact that she did indeed exist. But guys, fun fact. If you want some elite ball knowledge about Kira's mother, did you know gaming? There exists an old interview where Araki admitted that in his original plans for Diamond is Unbreakable, Yoshikage Kira was supposed to have a red twin brother that would help him in his nefarious endeavors, named Yoshi-Redka Kira. We were freaking robbed. This is such bullshit! Why can't we ever have nice things? Oh yeah, so Japanese people don't typically circumcise. It's not really a practice in their culture or their religion, so like, no, I highly doubt Yoshikage Kira would have been circumcised. I had a bit in the script where I talk about Kira being the anti-Kojima, but I cut it, so you guys make the joke yourself. Diavolo was born in an all-women's prison in Italy in 1967. Or 1965, why are there 2 dates? How his mother even got pregnant in the first place, I don't know. How do people even get pregnant? Nobody ever explained it to me. Italy was a very Catholic country at the time of Diavolo's birth, and Catholics at the time did not practice circumcision. But let's say even if Diavolo's mother wanted to circumcise her baby, how would she even afford it? I don't want to assume Diavolo's mother's social status, but I mean, come on, what was she supposed to do? Sell cigarettes at 50 cents a pop? She ain't affording that. But what makes this question more complicated is when we consider Diavolo's name. Diavolo is Italian for the word devil. What kind of Catholic person names their kid the devil? And since Diavolo's mother was in jail and he seemingly had no father, guess where they decided to send the baby? A priest. A priest raising a baby named the devil. A baby born from a pregnancy that happened without ever getting pregnant. Scratch everything. This guy is the freaking antichrist. So to solve if Diavolo's circumcised, we gotta figure out if the antichrist would be circumcised. Interpretations of the antichrist differ between Christians, Muslims, and Jews. But one thing in common between all of them is that once the antichrist appears in our world, it would likely try its best to blend into our society and hide in plain sight. What did you think this video would be about when you saw the title and thumbnail and clicked on it? If Diavolo really is the Antichrist, and he was born in a Catholic majority country that doesn't practice circumcision, it's likely that he too would remain uncircumcised in an attempt to blend in within his community. I guess that means if Diavolo's not circumcised, that would also mean that Doppio is also not circumcised since, you know, they're like two people in one body. Dude, that's just like me and my alter ego being funny. He doesn't come out very... Enrico Pucci was born 1972 in the good old US of A. At first, I was all like, oh wow, this is gonna be an easy one. But no, because how do we know Pucci is black? On the surface, I mean, well, just look at the guy. If Dr. House saw him, he would say, Pucci, you are a black man. But what makes this even a question is that when you look at Pucci's parents, they look like this. And then Pucci's brother, he looks like this. So like, what's going on here? Well, the conclusion to Pucci's race is a heavily debated topic that people still argue about online to this day. For the record, I think character race debates are stupid and cringe, and under normal circumstances, I would never even throw my hat into that kind of ring, because believe it or not, guys, I don't care what race this anime character is. But unfortunately, I kinda have to get into this topic to solve the question. Pucci is of Italian descent, and historically, it was not crazy uncommon to portray Italians or Southern Italians with darker skin. Darker, of course, being in reference to the more Northern Europeans. But usually, even when Italians weren't considered white, they weren't considered black either. They were just Italian. Also, Araki is Japanese and Hermes' sister looks like this. I don't think when Araki is making a character, he expects people to hyper-focus on the races the way people do. And frankly, I obviously don't care what race any character is, but god damn it, it matters when we're talking about circumcision. What makes this whole situation even more complicated is that the anime actually did change Pucci's father to be significantly darker. So like now what? I would call Pucci logic, but I don't think he ever sang about his mixed race parents. You know, none of this even matters. He's black, he's Italian, I don't care. I'm playing Super fucking Monkey Ball Banana Mania. The reason this whole conversation matters is because, like I said before, Italians typically do not circumcise. But do you know who does? Americans. Black. Therefore, I kind of feel like giving an answer as to whether or not Pucci is circumcised would also be like me picking a side on Pucci's race when I really don't want to. Therefore, is Pucci circumcised? I don't know, man. I don't fucking know. Why doesn't anyone ever ask Hammond to beat these questions? Why does it gotta be me? He's smarter than me. He could figure it out. He could probably pull up some old 2001 grocery store conversation Araki had with his next door neighbor where he casually confirmed the status of Pucci's foreskin. Funny Valentine was born in 1847, which makes him only slightly older than your mother. Valentine says he had loving parents, but can you really say that about any parent who gives their child the first name Funny? I find it hard to believe that the American population would elect a dude with the name Funny Valentine. I mean, surely Americans have higher standards for their presidents, right? 1847, yeah, circumcision isn't really a thing in the USA yet. It only really started in the 1900s to stop dudes from touching they willy. Trust me, it didn't even work. Valentine's father was a soldier, so maybe if he was all like, I'm a soldier, I love discipline, I gotta make sure my child is disciplined by removing his foreskin. But statistically, no, that is pretty damn unlikely, so no, Funny Valentine, not circumcised. Can you tell I'm a little miffed right now? I swear this next one better not be a character I have a deep seething hatred for, or I worry I might lose it before the video ends. Oh, Toru. Oh. Toru, you rock-based, Toru, you silicon-based fuck. You're trying to get me to talk about you right now. You're trying to get in 2 videos in a row. That kind of gluttony, that kind of greed. You're sickening me. This is what it was all building up for. This whole time. Why am I even doing this? No. I'm not talking about Toru's foreskin. I think I'd rather play Mort the Chicken, and you guys know how I feel about that. Anyways, guys, check out my cool Minecraft build. You see that? I was like building it in the background throughout the video. Isn't that kind of cool? I built a maternity ward because I don't know, I thought that would be fitting. Okay, bye guys, see you next video.